We've got a lot to discuss on this episode of the MeidasTouch Podcast. The Trump corruption is blowing up in Donald Trump and his regime's face. Is accountability here? Let's go break down what's taken place. A federal grand jury in Norfolk, Virginia just refused to indict New York Attorney General Letitia James for alleged mortgage fraud. This follows her case getting dismissed previously because the prosecutor, Lindsay Halligan, was an unlawful prosecutor who was never actually appointed to be the United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. So the Trump regime just tried to refile and get an indictment of New York Attorney General Letitia James. Catherine Faulders and others are reporting that that indictment did not get accepted by a grand jury. They rejected it. There's still potentially an opportunity to try again, but we will break down. The vindictiveness of that prosecution just continues. The war crimes of the Trump regime are being exposed each and every day. And today, Democratic and Republican senators and Congress members were able to meet with Admiral Mitch Bradley, who was responsible for the war crimes, which they're referring to as war operations off the coast of Venezuela, which resulted thus far in about 84 people being killed. Of course, we've been focused recently on the first attack, the first war crime back on September 2nd, and the double tap, double strike. Let's be clear. The entire operation is a war crime in my view. But as we now learned, there were survivors of the boat strike, that these survivors were essentially defenseless. They were floating on the shrapnel, and an order was given to wipe them out, to liquidate them, to murder them in a despicable war crime under the red, white, and blue. So utterly despicable. I had the opportunity to meet and speak today with the ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, Democratic Congressmember Jim Himes. And Congressmember Himes told me that in his entire career, he's the top Democrat on the House Intelligence Committee. He said what he saw there was dastardly, despicable, the murder of these defenseless individuals off the coast of Venezuela. And he's calling for every American to be able to see what he saw because it is that horrific. It should also be noted that Donald Trump held a fake peace deal meeting between the Congo and Rwanda while there's active military operations still taking place in the Congo right now. And Trump said, look, I did a peace deal. Look at this great peace deal that I did, everybody. And there was even one reporter who said, hey, Donald, I know you're saying that there's a reporter from Africa, that I know that you're saying that there's a peace deal there, but like when do the troops and when does the peace actually happen? Because there are people dying in the Congo right now. And it should be noted that there is whether you want to call it a ISIS-backed group or rebel group or cell, it's called M23, affiliated with Rwanda, that's in the Congo doing these operations, which Rwanda says it's not affiliated with. M23 was not at this hearing today, but there's still these deaths en masse taking place in the Congo. And when Trump was asked by this reporter from Africa, he goes, maybe a few months, the leader of the Congo and Rwanda, they'll sort this out, but another fake deal there. We'll go over this and more here on the MeidasTouch Podcast. I am Ben Meiselas. I'm going to do this one solo today. Give my brothers a little bit of time off, and then they'll give me some time off next week as we head into a new year where I feel infinite momentum right now. I feel the tides are certainly turning. I feel that the people power is starting to show, and you see that MAGA Republicans are absolutely terrified right now. So why don't we just start with that news as well? You had MAGA Mike earlier today asked about the issue of affordability, the issue of the bad economy, right? There was jobless claims that were reported earlier this morning for this year have totaled about 1.1 million. That's up 54% year over year. Job losses, job cuts up 54%. year over year from where it was under former President Biden. The last time that these job losses were this high, we're talking about the Great Recession and we're talking about COVID. This data is really, really bad. And this follows the ADP data from Wednesday, where we saw that 35,000 private sector jobs were lost in the last month when there was expected to be a gain of 40,000 jobs. And amongst small businesses, they're getting hit the hardest. 120,000 job losses among small businesses last month alone. For the year, what's being reported right now is that 1.1 million number of job losses. So MAGA Mike was asked, hey, MAGA Mike, what do you make of this? To which MAGA Mike just said, relax, we're on target. Things are going good. The budget bill, which they call the big, beautiful budget bill, which I call the disastrous budget bill, MAGA Mike says, don't worry, that kicks in next year. So please just chill out. And there's basically a revolt fomenting within the MAGA Republican Party. I mean, you have MAGA Republican Elise Stefanik and MAGA Republican Nancy Mace, both also talking about the treatment of women within the MAGA Republican caucus and how bad women are being treated in the MAGA Republican caucus. You have Elise Stefanik saying if a vote were to be taken right now, MAGA Mike would be ousted as the speaker, that he's weak, he's ineffectual, and he needs to go. Now, one of the things that I think is happening is that Elise Stefanik also realizes that she ain't gonna be the governor of New York, and she wants to position herself as the next leader in the House of the Republican Party. And then you have Nancy Mace, and she says, I may do what Marjorie Taylor Greene did and get out of here. Again, the way that the MAGA men treat the MAGA women, she cites, and she just goes, why do I want to be involved in this at all? And this follows what we reported on, what Jake Sherman of Punchbowl reported on as well, that there are potentially dozens of other MAGA Republicans and Republicans from all different factions within the party who are dissatisfied and want to leave. So that is something that we will be following here with MAGA Mike potentially losing the speakership before the midterms. And again, those jobless claims are something that I think is a flashing warning sign. So while all of that is taking place, what is Kevin Hassett, Donald Trump's national economic advisor? What is Kevin Hassett saying? Well, even on state regime media, which calls itself Fox, they were asking Kevin Hassett. So, 76% of people say the economy is only fair or poor. What do you make of this? To which Kevin Hassett says, you know what? The issue is the government shutdown. And so you can always expect the numbers to be bad when there's a government shutdown. Let's take a look at what Kevin Hassett said there. Let's play this clip.
Let's take a look at a couple more polls. This one shows on a scale of excellent, good, only fair or poor, how would you rate economic conditions today? And if you combine only fair and poor, you get 76%. On that poll. And then we have who is more responsible for current economic conditions, President Trump or President Biden. And we have Trump at 62%. So, I know that we've heard from you, we've heard from Scott Bessent saying that things are going to feel very different in the beginning of the year. And everybody hopes that that's absolutely accurate. And we look forward to that. But, what would you say to people who are answering the survey that way, Kevin?
Right. Well, one of the things that we've seen and we've studied over the last couple of weeks is that when there's a government shutdown, then the things that we economists call the soft data, the survey data, tend to really, really tank because everyone's in a terrible mood because Washington can't work and the government shut down and they're worried about how bad it's going to be. But the hard data are what do people actually do with their lives, with their pocketbooks. And so, for example, we just saw the best Black Friday ever. People went out getting ready for the Christmas holiday shopping season, feeling very, very optimistic about the economy. As we go into next year, don't forget that all the people who have no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, who are going to be able to deduct the interest on their car loan if they buy a car, all those things are kicking in big time as we go into next year. That's why Secretary Bessent and I are both very confident that we're going to be looking at growth in the 4 numbers for the first half of next year.
Okay, and then you have Kevin Hassett being further asked by Fox, the numbers we looked at show inflation is still higher than wage growth. Yep, inflation is going up right now, despite the Trump regime claiming that inflation is going down. You have Kevin Hassett lying, and he goes, nope, wage growth is higher than inflation. They're just making this stuff up. And just so you all know, to be clear, when we talk about inflation now being about 3% year over year higher than former President Biden. Again, it's 3% higher than it was under Biden that year and then the year before that. It's a year over year analysis. But here's Fox saying the numbers that we looked at show that inflation is still higher than wage growth. Watch what Kevin Hassett says here. It's so utterly pathetic.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the numbers that we looked at show that inflation is still higher than wage growth. Is that true?
No. Wage growth is higher than inflation now. I'll send you an email, or come on next time and show you the chart.
Inflation is at 2.9%.
Real wage growth is $1,200 over the year.
Okay, we'll be happy to take a look at that.
I'll show it to you.
Let's take a look at it.
And then finally, you have Fox talking to Kevin Hassett and said, year to date, job cuts are up 54%. It was the data that I just shared with you. That seems like a troubling number. What do you make of it, Hassett? And Hassett's like, the flow of jobs in and out, just the flow of jobs, a little higher, but that's something that we can deal with. Watch what Kevin Hassett says here. Play the clip.
That last number that we just heard from Grady Trimble that says that year-to-date job cuts show an increase of 54%. That seems like a troubling number. What's your take on it?
Well, don't forget that there's hires and there's fires and there's separations and new jobs, and so net job creation for the year is very positive. But the flow of jobs in and out is a little bit higher. There's a little bit more turnover. A lot of times that could happen because people feel like they're actually able to get another job if they leave this job.
But folks, you know what the Donald Trump and his regime are really focused on here? It's aggrandizing Trump. It's Trump. And as we see Donald Trump physically and mentally deteriorate before our eyes, they're going to keep on doing things to try to make him feel big and powerful. And so one of the things that we saw in the past 24 hours, and I want to highlight this, is the Trump regime is renaming the Institute of Peace to the Donald J. Trump Institute of Peace. That's right. The State Department put out a statement saying that they've made an important initiative. You see Secretary Marco Rubio right here saying President Trump will be remembered by history as the President of Peace. It's time our State Department display that. And then the Department of State. This is what they're focused on right now, while Donald Trump has not brought peace to Ukraine in 24 hours like he's planned. Well, if you look at what's taking place in Gaza as well, there are still innocent Palestinians being killed. You still have Hamas right now remaining in control. You still have Netanyahu and Smotrich and his crew not recognizing a two-state solution. So, wherever you look, the world is far more destabilized. In a little bit in the show, we'll talk about how China's just brutally outmaneuvering Donald Trump, how the United States has really given the middle finger to Taiwan, to Japan, to Ukraine, to our NATO allies, but China has asserted itself, yes, again, and they keep on owning Donald Trump, and it's just so unfortunate to see. But what's the Department of State doing? They go, this morning, the State Department renamed the former Institute of Peace to reflect the greatest deal maker in our nation's history. Welcome to the Donald J. Trump Institute of Peace. The best is yet to come. Now, I want to give you the statement from Greg Foote, who's counsel for the former United States Institute of Peace leadership and staff. A federal court previously ruled that the termination of the board members and staff members at the United States Institute of Peace was unlawful. A federal court said Trump firing all these people from the Institute of Peace, unlawful. What does Donald Trump do? He rushes to the Supreme Court and says, Mr. John Roberts, Mr. Justice Alito, Mr. Clarence Thomas, and my right-wing extremists, this is going to cause me irreparable harm. I'm going to be irreparably harmed by this. So that's what Donald Trump says, that it would cause him irreparable harm. And the Supreme Court pauses the district court ruling declaring what Trump did illegal. So Trump's allowed to continue on because the Supreme Court uses its shadow docket to pause what the district court ultimately ruled. And how does Trump utilize that pause? Right here, he just changes the name of the thing to the Donald J. Trump Institute of Peace. This is what he's focused on. Golden ballrooms, arches, triumphal arches, changing the name of the Institute of Peace. And this is what George Foote, again, the lead counsel for the prior United States Institute of Peace, the group that was unlawfully fired. Here's what they say. Renaming the United States Institute of Peace building adds insult to injury. A federal judge has already ruled that the government's armed takeover was illegal. That judgment is stayed, paused, while the government appeals, which is the only reason the government continues to control the building. The rightful owners will ultimately prevail and will restore the U.S. Institute of Peace and the building to their statutory purpose. Because I can tell you, the statutory purpose of the Institute of Peace is not aiding and abetting freaking war crimes that are taking place in the name of the United States right now. It is despicable, and that's what's going on. Shame on Admiral Mitch Bradley. Shame on Navy SEAL Team 6 that was involved. Shame on anybody in the chain of command. Obviously, shame on Pete Hegseth. Shame on Donald Trump, anybody who was involved in the chain of command on these war crimes in Venezuela. Just think about it. Trump's doing these war crimes, literally killing people at sea who are defenseless against every law of international order, every law in the United States, just clear and obvious murder. But he wants to be called the peace president. He goes, this is what I do. I'm doing peace right here. No, you're not. So Admiral Mitch Bradley, the admiral who was involved in that operation, he met with Democrats, Republicans from the House and Senate and showed them the full video footage of that September 2nd strike, which was the first strike off the coast of Venezuela, killing the people on the fishing boats right there. Now, I will tell you what Democratic Congress member Jim Himes told me. Congressmember Himes is the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee. That means he's the top person of the Democrats on the Intelligence Committee. I sat down with him, and here is what he said today to me. Here, play this clip. What can you share with us about what you saw when the Admiral provided that video during the meeting?
It was exceedingly hard to watch. From a legal standpoint, you can say that this is a war. I don't agree with that. It's not a war. If it were a war, it would be authorized by Congress. But even if you stipulate that it's a war, there is an extremely specific prohibition against killing individuals who've been removed from the fight. The French term they use is hors de combat. And there is no question that these individuals were removed from the fight. They were in the last hours of their life, even if we had left them alone because they were floating on a piece of flotsam in the middle of an ocean. Maybe they might have been recovered by some of their colleagues, but they posed zero threat to anyone in the region. And we killed them.
And of course, now we're learning why Alvin Halsey, the 4-star admiral who's retiring soon, who's basically retired. The official retirement date doesn't come until pretty soon. But he was the one responsible over all of SOUTHCOM, Southern Command, that region in Venezuela, the Caribbean, where these war crimes were taking place. He stood up and said, I'm not going to follow unlawful orders, Pete Hegseth, to which Pete Hegseth said, if you don't follow my orders, you need to go. You need to resign. Everything that I do, Hegseth said, is lawful because I, Pete Hegseth, say so. That's what makes it lawful. A little bit in the show, we'll talk about Signalgate and the report by the Inspector General there. But Pete Hegseth said, if I say it, therefore it is lawful, you do it. And Alvin Halsey said, I ain't doing it. No. and then he left. That's what you're supposed to do. Alvin Holsey is someone who deserves praise, and I think will go down in history very favorably, I believe. On the other hand, I think somebody like Admiral Mitch Bradley is going to go down in history for shame, for being involved in a war crime. Tell me what you think. Now, I also want to talk about Signalgate, and we will talk about that in a moment. I want to remind everybody to subscribe, though. Help us get to 6 million subscribers. We're on our way to 6 million right now. Help us get to 6 million subscribers. You may think you're subscribed, but you may not actually be subscribed. So please, if you can, hit subscribe. Also, become a member if you can. Click join. You can gift memberships to as many people as you want. Ooh! We've got so much to talk about. When we come back, we're going to talk about the grand jury rejecting the indictment in Norfolk of New York Attorney General Letitia James. Don't they say you can indict a ham sandwich? The Trump regime can't. And woof. Utterly embarrassing for an utterly embarrassing, humiliating regime. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Signalgate. We'll talk about, the big Republican hearings. Showerheads. They're infatuated with showerheads. But AOC used the hearing to expose how the MAGA Republicans are the ones creating an affordability crisis, which, by the way, Donald Trump reinforces by saying affordability, it's the biggest con job ever. Let's take our first quick break of the show. Look, last minute shopping during the holidays is the worst. You're probably running out of ideas. The stores are packed and forget about finding parking. That's why Aura Frames has become my go-to last minute lifesaver. It's a gift that actually feels thoughtful and personal. I'll be honest, I typically struggle with ideas for what to buy for my family, my parents, my siblings, all of them. So I tend to put it off because I want something special, something memorable. And in my opinion, Aura Frames is the best gift for that. Here's why. Aura Frames lets you share photos or videos from any device, and they'll instantly appear on the frame wherever it is in the world. It could be at your home, your office, or across the country, even across the world, wherever you want to share it. And the quality, it's incredible. Aura displays photos in true color and automatically adjusts to the light level of the room. At night, when you turn out the lights, the frame turns off too, saving energy and letting you sleep. And setup is ridiculously fast. It only takes about 2 minutes using the Aura app. You just download the app, connect to Wi-Fi, preload your photos before it ships, add a message, and then keep sharing photos and videos all year long. Every frame even comes in a premium gift box with no price tag, ready to gift. You can't wrap togetherness, but you can frame it. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code Meidas at checkout. That's AURA frames.com, promo code Meidas. MEIDAS. This deal is exclusive to listeners and frames sell out fast, so order yours now to get it in time for the holidays. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
Ever have one of those moments where your body reminds you it's not 25 anymore? Maybe it's the slower recovery after a workout or the way your joints creak like an old floorboard. And don't get me started on how much worse it is in the winter. It's like my energy goes into hibernation. Aging is a reality for all of us, but our actions determine how we age. That's why I use Qualia Senolytic to help keep my cells healthy and my body feeling youthful. Zombie cells are real and they're aging you. These senescent cells stop being useful, but stick around, draining your energy, slowing recovery, and making you feel older than you are. Qualia Senolytic helps your body fight back against aging. It's a powerful, clinically tested formula with 9 vegan, plant-derived compounds that support your body's natural ability to eliminate zombie cells, so you can feel sharper, stronger, and more energized. Take it just 2 days a month. That's all it takes. Take Qualia Senolytic for just 2 days a month and start aging better at the cellular level. After adding Qualia Senolytic to my routine, I noticed a real difference. My energy feels steadier, recovery is quicker, and mentally, I'm more dialed in. Experience the science of feeling younger. Go to qualialife.com/Meidas for up to 50% off your purchase and use code Meidas for an additional 15%. That's qualialife.com/Meidas MeidasTouch.com/Meidas for up to 50% off your purchase. Your older self will thank you. And thanks to Qualia for sponsoring this episode.
Welcome back to the MeidasTouch Podcast. I miss Brett and Jordy today, but I told them, I said, let me just do this one today. We'll have next week, maybe you give me a break, but I'm so glad to be spending all of this time with all of you. Make sure you hit subscribe right now. Help us get to 6 million subscribers. We're on our way. And you saw that earlier this week, Donald Trump attacked us on his social media platform. He played the interview that I did with former Attorney General Eric Holder. You may have seen that. And then Trump's like, look at what these radicals are doing. They want to reform the Supreme Court. We need to kill the filibuster. And then you had state regime media, which calls itself Fox, attacking the segment I did with Vin Gupta, who runs Midas Health. And doesn't Dr. Gupta do such an incredible job? He's been on the forefront calling Donald Trump's physical and mental decline out, calling out the fact that there's no such thing as a abdominal preventative MRI. He spoke to all the individuals in the field of radiology, MRI technicians, you name it. And they said, yeah, that's just not a thing that we do, preventative abdominal MRIs. And that's what Donald Trump was saying when he was exposed for getting advanced imaging, which turns out it was an MRI. And usually you don't get MRIs of the abdomen in general, not to say it never takes place, but usually MRIs, you're talking about spine, usually they're of the brain, the head area, they're for a specific purpose. So if you were to do a preventative MRI, well, you would probably then do all aspects of it. So then you're omitting the fact that you did it of the brain, okay, or the spine, that's odd. And then Donald Trump said, I got an A. I got an A on a cognitive exam. And it seems like every 3 months, he keeps on taking cognitive exams over and over again. I'll just give you my opinion. We're all entitled to our own opinions, right, under the First Amendment. So my view, as I've studied his late father, Fred Trump, who had Alzheimer's in the early 1990s, which then rapidly deteriorated until the time of Fred Trump's death, they were covering up, or they were not being forthcoming about the fact that he had Alzheimer's and this really awful and progressively worse dementia. And so, I did a whole video on this where I studied the court file of Fred Trump in connection with the estate. And my own opinion, given that this is genetic, Alzheimer's, 30%, sometimes even higher. We know Alzheimer's runs in the Trump family. Dementia runs in the Trump family. I don't want to give Trump an out based on his cruel and unusual behavior to say, oh, well, everything he's doing is because of hypothetical dementia or because of, hypothetical other mental types of situations. But I think we can all observe that this entire week, whether it was that disastrous cabinet meeting, whether it was this fake peace deal thing they announced between Congo and Rwanda, whether it was yesterday where everybody was in the Oval Office and Trump just went on that tirade against Somalians and said all Somalians are garbage people. What a horrific, racist, disgusting thing to say. But he was like sleeping during a lot of that as well. Like Ted Cruz was behind him. He's like, Ted. He's like, Ted, where do you come from, Ted? So we know a lot's going on there. I'll get into that. We'll tie all of that together as well. But why don't we talk about, they're calling it Signal Gate, but it basically means that Pete Hegseth, who unfortunately is the Secretary of Defense, who unlawfully refers to himself as the Secretary of War, was sending war plans regarding military strikes in Yemen on a Signal chat, which is supposed to be an encrypted app. But let's draw a distinction. Encrypted versus secured, number one, are different things. But he was talking about war plans on his personal phone. Now, Pete Hegseth, like the liar and scumbag that he is, excuse my language, I don't know how else to refer to him sometimes, Pete Hegseth goes, no classified information, total exoneration, case closed. Houthis bombed into submission. Thank you for your attention to this IG report. IG refers to Inspector General. That's the watchdog group that works inside the various departments. And the Trump regime worked to get rid of all of these IGs. So there's like an acting IG now in these various departments. But even this IG, currently at the Defense Department, said that the conduct by Hegseth placed the military in jeopardy, that this was a breach of protocol. And the only claim that Pete Hegseth made is that he has what he refers to as original declassification authority. Original declassification authority. Basically, it's what Trump's claim was when Trump brought the documents, the classified documents and potential nuclear secrets to Mar-a-Lago, that telepathically, Hegseth says, that he could basically retroactively declassify anything he wants because he's the Secretary of Defense. So, for example, he didn't say this, but this would be the argument. If he were to send the nuclear codes to Xi Jinping, the leader of China, Hegseth can say, well, even though I sent it, I hereby declare it retroactively as declassified, so therefore it's not classified information because I have original declassification authority, right? It's total crap, but that's the argument that he makes right here. And you see he takes zero accountability for sending these messages about the war plans while the war plans were being effectuated hours before the strike took place, which placed our military in jeopardy. That's what the report said. There's other aspects that I think are not getting enough attention that we should dig into here. Like specifically, Pete Hegseth refused to show up for an interview with the Inspector General. The Inspector General, normal courses, if you're under investigation, you show up. Hegseth gave him the middle finger, said, I ain't showing up. The Inspector General says, can we look at your personal phone to see if this involved more people? Were there more chats that existed than just the ones that we know about, which were published in The Atlantic? And the only reason it was published in The Atlantic is because Hegseth and others in the regime accidentally let into the chat room a reporter from The Atlantic who was in the chat. And that's how this even got discovered in the first place. Hegseth refused to turn over his phone, refused to cooperate really with the investigation. He gave a written statement basically about original declassification and otherwise refused to participate at all. So the only reason that we know about the conversation that took place, and that's all the Inspector General's report was based on, is because the United States government under this Trump regime, the regime, accidentally invited in the Atlantic reporter, who they then attacked for inviting him into the chat room, and they inadvertently brought him into the chat room. So it begs the question, how many other chats like this were taking place involving war plans? Is Hegseth talking about military capabilities, airplane procurement, top secrets about our military, other strikes, other highly classified information? Like, I thought it was notable that there was a classified brief about Hegseth's conduct, which Hegseth has to claim is not classified in the first place, but it was so highly classified that the members of Congress who looked at one of the versions of the reports about Hegseth's conduct had to do it in a SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility, because it was so highly classified. Now, I think we should also reflect on the fact that we know that foreign intelligence services are looking at the signal chats and phones of American officials, for better or for worse. Often for worse, sometimes for better. I mean, just think about this example in the past week. Steve Witkoff, Trump's envoy to Russia, who's basically been acting as Putin's puppet, laundering Putin's plan of surrender to try to get Ukraine to surrender. Some intelligence service got the signal chat between Witkoff, between Kirill Dmitriev, and Yuri Yushkov about the 28-point plan of surrender. An intelligence service got that from the signal chat that they were having. So clearly, they were able to access that. I think Witkoff is worried. Who was it? Was it a European intelligence service? Was it Ukrainian intelligence service? Someone got it and leaked the chat to show that the U.S. was compromised and doing Putin's bidding to help Ukraine. That was a good example, right? And you know Witkoff with that sweaty face of his, right? You know he's terrified to go, oh crap. What else do these intelligence services have in mind? They've got it all. These intelligence services know how to get into these phones, so you could be sure that they have it. You're telling me that you don't think Putin, Xi Jinping, Iran, allied with Yemen, you're telling me that you don't think that some of these other intelligence services have access to Hegseth's signal the same way that some intelligence service had access to Witkoff's? So what else was Hegseth chatting about? And you could be sure, it's my opinion, and I think it's a good one, that there are probably dozens of other chats that are taking place, like that involve highly sensitive stuff, and who knows what the hell just got into the hands of our enemies. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to classified information. And because Hegseth didn't turn over his phone to the Inspector General, we just don't know, because this is the least transparent regime that exists. There was one other point that I think deserves more attention as you talk about this situation with maybe people that you know, which is at Hegseth's home, the Defense Department actually set up a SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility. They gave him a special phone to conduct business inside the SCIF, and they created all of the necessary circumstances for Hegseth to engage in appropriate classified communications about warplanes from his own home. What we learned, and this part I think deserves more attention, Hegseth took that information from the SCIF, which was deemed to be top secret, no foreign, NOFORN, took that, walked outside the SCIF, put the phone that was supposed to be used for classified communications down, left, picked up his personal phone, went on the Signal chat, and started bragging about the military operation outside the SCIF. He could have talked about it inside the SCIF using the appropriate equipment. And that should just piss you the hell off, no matter whether you're a Republican, no matter where you're a Democrat, but it's just corruption, corruption, corruption. This regime reeks of corruption in everything they do. And I can talk to you about another example of corruption right now that we've seen on full display this week, and it is those Trump corrupt pardons. And I just want to give you this data right now. So far, Trump has pardoned over 1,500 criminals thus far in under a year. Over 1,500 people. By contrast, really no other president in their entire term ever did more than 250 ever. And it's usually 198, 212, 150. Even in Trump's first administration, it was, 200 or something. It wasn't this huge number. But it's also the type of people that Trump is pardoning, right? He pardoned some of the biggest fraudsters, some of the biggest human traffickers, some of the worst people. I mean, you take a look, just look at this week. So while Donald Trump is out there saying the Somalians, the Somalis, they're garbage people, Trump says. They're all fraud, Trump says, which is such a racist and despicable thing to say. And screw any media company that goes, oh, that's just Trump's position. No, you don't say the Somalis as a people, as a culture, as an ethnicity are criminals and garbage humans, okay? That's the language of Hitler. That's the language of despicable, vile racists who have committed genocide. You don't use that language at all. Period, full stop. So cut it out and let's grow up and act like we're adults. But Trump says all the Somalis are fraud. And meanwhile, who's Donald Trump pardoning this week? The actual biggest fraudsters, the actual biggest drug dealers, some of the biggest scumbags imaginable. Like, this didn't get enough attention, but I'm bringing attention to it here on the MeidasTouch Podcast. How about this? A guy by the name of David Jetil, who ran a fraudulent private equity firm. He was their CEO. He was convicted for his role in a $1.6 billion fraud scheme. In his conviction, the prosecutors showed evidence that he defrauded 10,000 investors. We're not talking about just ripping off other companies or rich people, which still you shouldn't do. We're talking about retail investors, people who were doing $1,000, $5,000, $10,000. Some people putting in their whole life savings. And he was pardoned, or technically commuted. 7-year sentence. He served a few days. Trump commuted this guy's sentence. He's like a Bernie Madoff, an actual massive, massive fraud. I mean, by the way, like when you look at Senator Rick Scott, who's the MAGA healthcare guy, although, of course, that's all fraud. They never actually put out a healthcare plan, even though they promised in the first Trump administration, 2 more weeks. And then after the government shutdown, we're going to give you a healthcare plan, which they don't do. That guy was involved in the biggest Medicare and Medicaid criminal fraud in history as well. That's how he made his money. He invoked the fifth like 75 times when he was sued. And then his company entered into a criminal settlement, an SEC settlement, and he left with a golden parachute right there. So you want to talk about fraud, waste, and abuse? It is the MAGAs. And they're out here using this terminology to try to brainwash their own base when they're the ones who are engaged in this behavior. So you want to talk about the fraud and you go, oh, the Somalis. No, you just pardon David Gentile, a Ponzi schemer who stole $1.6 billion and was convicted. You want to talk about narco-terrorist and drug trafficking? As you all know by now, Trump pardoned Juan Orlando Hernandez, who said, get that cocaine up the gringo's nose. Get it up the gringo's nose. Let's kill him. 400, 500 tons of cocaine that this guy, the former president of Honduras, shipped into the United States, killing thousands, tens of thousands of Americans. Trump's former personal lawyer, Emil Bove, who became one of Trump's top prosecutors at the DOJ, who's now a Trump-appointed Third Circuit Court of Appeals judge, was one of the lead prosecutors against Juan Orlando Hernandez. And Trump's like, it was a deep state thing. No, it was you initiated it during your first administration, during the first Trump administration or regime in August of 2019 against Juan Orlando Hernandez. There was ample evidence that this guy, the former leader of Honduras, worked with El Chapo to bring so much drugs into the United States. He used his position to do that along with his brother. So Donald Trump pardons that guy. So who else did Donald Trump pardon? Oh, Donald Trump pardoned a guy who his own regime prosecuted. Trump pardons former top entertainment executive who was charged by his own Justice Department this week. This guy by the name of Tim Lewicki, the co-founder of Oak View Group, who Trump's own Justice Department earlier this year prosecuted for crimes. He pled not guilty, but the crimes would carry a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison and a $1 million fine. Trump pardoned this guy, a full and complete pardon. Trump's own regime found the evidence. And then Trump said, nah. And then there was the guy who runs that company, Binance, the crypto exchange or whatever it was. You have so much data points here over and over again of just complete and utter corruption in plain view. And I think it's important that we take a step back, we talk about all of that, and we show, look, as the American people suffer, as Donald Trump says, affordability, it's just one big scam. It's not really a real thing. It's a Democratic hoax. Trump's out there helping the drug traffickers, the sex traffickers, the fraudsters. That's what he's doing each and every day. And here was Donald Trump saying affordability is the greatest con job. Here, playing this clip.
It's a con job. I think affordability is the greatest con job. They look at you and they say, affordability. They don't say anything else. Everyone says, oh, their prices were so low. No, they had the worst inflation.
All right, we're going to take our last quick break of the show. When we come back, I want to chat about this ridiculous meeting that Donald Trump had with the leaders of Congo and Rwanda, where Trump was declaring, look, I brought peace while there's a war going on right now. While there's a war. I did 8 wars. I did 9 wars, saved 9 wars. I brought in $23 trillion. Everyone's going to be so rich. They're just a bunch of losers. Fraudsters, like the people they are pardoning. Reminder, make sure you hit subscribe. You may think you're subscribed, but you might not actually be subscribed to the MeidasTouch YouTube channel. Lots of people are like, I thought I was subscribed, but I'm not subscribed. Yeah, hit subscribe right now. Let's get to 6 million subscribers right now. And also become a member of our YouTube channel if you can. We'd appreciate that. And you can gift memberships to others. All right, let's take our last quick break of the show.
You know, the holiday season can be stressful, the nonstop shopping, the travel, the parties every single weekend. When I need to slow down and actually relax, I reach for Sol's out-of-office gummies. The perfect balance of CBD and THC helps me find my calm and keep my peace of mind. And look, I've been using Sol for a while now. You know that. I've tried their out-of-office gummies, and the thing I love is how consistent and clean they feel. No heavy head, no grogginess, none of that bloated, sugary cocktail feeling. Just a mild lift, a clearer mood, and honestly, a great swap for nights when I don't feel like drinking. It's been a game changer during this crazy season. Sol is a wellness brand that believes feeling good should be fun and easy. Sol specializes in delicious hemp-derived THC and CBD products designed to boost your mood and help you unwind. Their best-selling out-of-office gummies were designed to provide a mild, relaxing buzz, boost your mood, and enhance creativity and relaxation. With 5 different strengths, you can tailor the dose to fit your vibe, from a gentle 1.5 milligram microdose to their newest 15 milligram gummy for a more elevated experience. And if you like those gummies, they've got a new out-of-office beverage, alcohol-free, refreshing, perfect for sitting on the couch or hanging out with friends without the next day regret. Plus, Sol's also got incredible sleepy gummies if you need deep, restorative sleep, and everything they make is organically farmed right here in the USA, vegan, gluten-free, low in sugar, and federally legal, so you can actually feel good about what you're taking. So this is still going on. Take advantage of Sol's Black Friday Cyber Monday deal now. For a limited time, get 40% off your entire order. Go to getsol.com and use the code Meidas. That's getsol.com, promo code Meidas, MEIDAS, for 40% off. Don't miss their best deal of the year.
Long work weeks and busy weekends can leave you feeling and looking depleted. Prolon's 5-day fasting mimicking diet works at the cellular level to rejuvenate you from the inside out, providing real results that include fat-focused, sustainable weight loss with no injection needed. And now they're upping their game with the new next-gen 5-day program, delivering the same science-backed benefits in a cleaner, more convenient, and more flavorful format. Prolon is a plant-based nutrition program featuring soups, snacks, and beverages designed to nourish the body while keeping it in a fasting state, triggering cellular rejuvenation and renewal. Developed over decades at USC's Longevity Institute and backed by top US medical centers, Prolon has been shown to support biological age reduction, metabolic health, skin appearance, fat loss, and energy. NextGen builds on the original Prolon with 100% organic soups and teas, a richer taste, and ready-to-eat meals. No matter the season, when I'm craving a real reset, Prolon is the only nutrition program that works for me. It's convenient, backed by Nobel-winning science, and it works. For a limited time, Prolon is offering listeners 15% off site-wide, plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe to their 5-day program. Just visit prolonlife.com/Meidas. That's prolonlife.com/Meidas to claim your 15% discount and your bonus gift. prolonlife.com/Meidas. If you're a homeowner, you need to listen to this. In today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles and your equity is the target. Now here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document. They use a fake notary stamp, pay a small fee with your county, and just like that, your home title has been transferred out of your name. Then they take out loans using your equity or even sell your property, and you won't even know it's happened. That is until you get a collection or foreclosure notice. So, when's the last time you checked your home title? If your answer is never, you need to do something about it right now. That's why I've partnered with Home Title Lock, so you can find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code Meidas at HomeTitleLock.com and you'll get a free title history report and a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud does happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Find out why I trust Home Title Lock. Protect yourself like I did. Go to HomeTitleLock.com and use promo code Meidas. That's HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Meidas.
Welcome back to the MeidasTouch Podcast. Thank you to all of our sponsors. We are so grateful for each and every one of them. This would not be possible without those sponsors, so please support them if you can. The discount codes are in the description below. And of course, none of this is possible without you. Let me just let you know, Midas Mighty, we are so damn grateful for you. What you have been able to accomplish this year when all hope seemed to be lost to where we are right now. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to paint some rosy picture of the state and condition of our country or our economy, but I will mention that I think we're beginning to talk about and think about what a world looks like in a post-Trump era where we can try to move beyond this Trump loser, corrosive, dangerous, traitorous, treasonous, felonious behavior. And that's a testament to you. So I'm grateful for you. I'm thankful for you. Let's also just get into it as well. Speaking about Donald Trump's fraudulent and just despicable behavior, this was what I wanted to share with you before, which is that Donald Trump had this press conference today where he was announcing that he did this incredible deal, he said, between Rwanda and Congo. But I want you to listen carefully to this reporter from Africa. It's hard to hear her, so I'll let you know what she says, but you may be able to hear her. She goes, look, it's great that you're saying historical peace deal is made, but she says, but there's still troops that are there in the Congo right now. And, this M23 group is not, is not here. The signatories that really need to be in this deal aren't in the room. So what do you say is going to happen, Donald? And he's like, we'll get it done. We'll see you in a few months. What do you mean? You're announcing a peace deal. What do you mean you're going to see in a few months? You either do a deal or you don't do a deal. But this is another this is what he's done his whole life. Fraud. These are the Trump fake deals. Here, play this clip.
Because this needs to be real, the truth needs to withdraw from the island.
I think you're going to see very quick and very quickly, I think you're going to see things happen. This is something that was not doable, according to a lot of people, and not only is it doable, I think it's going to be a great miracle. These two gentlemen are leaders, they're great leaders, and they're going to prove that in the coming months and years, and I think you're going to see very immediate results. I have confidence that that's what's going to happen. Thank you very much, everybody.
And by the way, through a lot of it, he was just sleeping. So here, as Jim Acosta goes, more like the Institute of Zzz, because he just falls asleep. Here, play this clip.
Uhuru Kenyatta, who I can see here in the room, these two great Africans who are at the beginning, who started the Rwanda and the Nairobi processes. And beyond them, I wish to thank also all of the African leaders who contributed.
And throughout the last 48 hours, his behavior has just been so abhorrent. And, sometimes I know the media is like Democrats, Republicans, independent, It's like Trump's behavior is that of like a very poorly behaving second grader. And no offense to poorly behaving to second graders, because they behave much better than this. But I just want you to watch this. So you have Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy at this Oval Office presser that took place on Wednesday. And Duffy does what this regime always does, which is attack Biden and former Transportation Secretary Buttigieg. And then as Transportation Secretary Duffy's doing that, you've got Donald Trump's like, Buttigieg, Buddha. You mean Buttigieg? It's like, well, it's not. And then everybody laughs like this is like supposed to be funny. It's like there's nothing funny about this behavior. Here, play this clip.
You have to look at combustion engines. Biden and Buttigieg actually did an analysis using Buttigieg.
While we're on the topic of Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, he's been out there, basically over and over again, pushing things like, what we really need to get rid of? What Americans are really thinking about right now? What, Sean? What are Americans thinking about right now? He's like, we need 1970s station wagons. Why don't we have 1970s station wagons again? I don't know. We've progressed. We're beyond 1970s station wagons, Sean Duffy, but this is what you guys are thinking about. Anyway, here, play this clip.
And also, I think if you're building a car, developing a car that Joe Biden or Pete Buttigieg wanted you to build, that's different than market demand. I want the market to decide what kind of EV I should offer. What kind of vehicles do the American consumers want to buy? This rule will actually allow you to bring back the 1970s station wagon, maybe a little wood paneling on the side, Phil. We can bring back toys to consumers. So yeah, the minivan's awesome, but maybe the station wagon is cool too.
And that's one of the things about this regime. Like, just think about some of the ideas that they have. Like, we know the pain that they've inflicted. We talk about the ICE Gestapo, the deportations, throwing people into concentration camps, the covering up of the Epstein files, all the tariffs against the world. But I just want you to think about it. What, in the past few weeks, they've been like, they're sitting around in a room and someone's like, I've got a great idea. And you're like, well, what's your idea? Here's my idea. Coast Guard. Hear me out. What's missing in the Coast Guard? And someone in the meeting is like, what? What's missing with the Coast Guard? Swastikas. Huh? We're missing swastikas in the Coast Guard. What are you talking about? Nooses. We're missing nooses. Nooses? Swastika? What? And maybe Confederate flags. And then the room goes, oh, great idea. Let's bring that back to the Coast Guard. And everyone's like, yay. And then they actually announce that as a plan. And they push that plan forward. And then someone has to call them out and go, what'd you do? And they go, oh, we didn't do that. We didn't do that. It's like, who the hell's doing that? Who the hell's sitting in a room like these MAGAs are? And someone goes, you know what the American people really want right now? Affordability? No. Be able to afford homes? No. No, it's not what they want. Healthcare? No. No, I don't want that. I give up. What is it? Nurses. Okay. Nurses? We like nurses. Aren't professionals. Wait, what are you saying? Take away their professional degrees. Wait, what do you mean take away their professional degrees? Let's say that nurses aren't professionals anymore and take away their professional degrees so the Department of Education doesn't have to be involved in supporting people becoming nurses. We need less nurses. Oh, less nurses, not more nurses? Yeah, less nurses. High five, let's take it. I mean, that's one of their ideas, to destroy the nursing profession. So just think about some of their ideas. And then you have Sean Duffy. You know what people are really thinking about right now? What is it? People are showing up in the airplanes wearing their pajamas. And we got to make sure that people are nicer and stop wearing pajamas. Okay, well, nicer's fine, but pajamas. Let's get rid of the pajamas. Okay, but maybe the airlines can actually, provide services where they don't overbill and they don't treat people like crap and herd people in like cattle and treat people like absolute trash. And maybe if they create a better experience, then we could actually deal with it. No, take off those. Stop your pajamas. It's like, what are you even talking about? And then his idea here. We need to bring back 1970s station wagon. I showed you that clip. It's absolutely ridiculous. And while Donald Trump holds these press conferences right now, state regime media can't criticize him when Trump says affordability is a con job. It's one big con job. So because they're scared of him. And so now even state regime media is like, we're going to continue to wait for Donald Trump announcing his latest move. But we can't call it affordability. So what should we call it right now? Donald Trump may text us angry if we call it affordability. I mean, didn't his whole fraud campaign run on affordability? They're going to make things more affordable. Now they can't even say the word because Donald Trump says it's a con job. Watch Fox say that affordability is a con job. Here, play this clip.
Sandra, we continue to wait for President Trump to speak from the White House, announcing the latest move in his, I don't want to say the affordability agenda because he might text me. The latest move in his efforts, I guess, to make things more affordable. Can you say it any other way?
To improve the economy, to grow the economy, right, John? Plus.
And then I'm not sure you caught this, but you probably caught this. We talked about it on the MeidasTouch YouTube channel. So one of the things that this disgusting regime always does too is they steal the music of artists. So they steal songs, they steal people's IP. So they recently stole Sabrina Carpenter's, the pop star. They stole her song and they made a commercial where they showed the regime, ICE, Gestapo, Border Patrol torturing and terrorizing migrants. And they used Sabrina Carpenter's song. And Sabrina Carpenter says, please don't use my music. I don't want to be associated with this disgusting behavior. So please, let's not use my music. It's disgusting. I don't want to be associated with this. So then the Trump regime attacks Sabrina Carpenter. Now, Sabrina Carpenter's post saying, I don't want to be associated with this disgusting and inhumane behavior, has gotten close to 200 million views on X, formerly Twitter now alone. But now, in the most misogynistic, gross way, Fox and its state regime media hosts continue to attack her. So they've got Greg Gutfeld say, look at her opposed to representatives of women her age. This is what Greg Gutfeld has to say about her on state regime media known as Fox. Here, play this clip.
Talk about her? Every time we talk about affordability, we're not talking about Sabrina Carpenter.
True. You want to talk about her?
Well, here's the thing is, I'm not into the celebrity aspect. I'm into the phase of life. Think about, look at her as opposed to a representative of women her age, single, no kids, no responsibilities. They have yet to experience any transformative event that would inform their beliefs. So the things that she detests today, she will learn to and understand to value later, like we all have.
Again, such horrific language. You're attacking Sabrina Carpenter, like a beloved pop star right now. Again, this behavior, it shouldn't even be viewed as, Democrat or Republican. It should just be viewed as this is not acceptable human behavior at all. And so, finally, one of the things that Congress is doing right now, what they're trying to do in the House of Representatives is they know that if they talk about any topics that are actually salient and relevant to what the American people want, that they're just going to get clobbered by Democrats and they're going to get exposed because their whole agenda is rip away healthcare, rip away SNAP, rip away, make things less affordable, help the billionaires, take away rural hospitals, screw people, right? That's their whole shtick, right? And so the plan by the MAGAs is to basically run out the clock. And so how, in a sports match, like basketball or soccer, football if you're international, or soccer here in the States, you just try to delay and run out the remainder of your time. So that's what they're trying to do for the rest of the year. And so the big hearing, right? There's so many issues that we need big hearings about right now. But the big hearing that Republicans have held this week was about the shower heads. And they blame the shower heads for pressure. And the whole point is that Biden wanted you to take bad showers. Biden's overregulation is the reason why your showers are bad because of the way shower heads are being installed or something like that. Not addressing some of the systemic issues about water pressure, but whatever. So this is what they talk about. So you've got MAGA Republican Congressmember Fry. He's like, let it flow, let it flow. They think this is funny. Here, play this clip.
At the subcommittee level, I think some of my colleagues on the other side were a little bit bothered by some of the punny jokes that we had in my remarks, so I made sure to add more. There's nothing quite like a shower act in December. Let it flow, let it flow, let it flow. Some of our colleagues may want to freeze debate on this bill, but today we're actually going to talk about common sense.
And here he is again saying your hair and shampoo shouldn't require a 4-year evacuation plan. Here, play this clip.
Your hair and your shampoo shouldn't require a 4-year evacuation plan. I urge my colleagues to support this straightforward bill. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you. We appreciate We applaud you showering us with your wisdom. We appreciate it very much.
Does that remind you of Billy Madison, right? Oh, conditioner is better. Shampoo is better. Conditioner is better. What are you doing? But I want you to watch how AOC deals with this. Here's what AOC says. Here, play this clip.
As a person who has installed their own shower heads, who has, encountered this, if you are having a dribbly shower, is this not a water pressure issue? in your home. I mean, generally, like mechanically, I'm trying to engage this in good faith, genuinely. And secondly, it seems as though we're blaming the shower head on a water pressure issue. And in doing so, we are deregulating a piece of hardware that actually drives people's water bills up. And if we want to talk about affordability, and if we want to be in touch with working people's lives, my hope is that we've had that experience, that we know the things that we're legislating. And why would we make this affordability problem worse? I mean, I'm really trying to approach this earnestly. And if we can solve this problem by addressing a water pressure issue, there's no need to be changing regulations that increase people's water bills in the name of quote unquote personal choice. This is how our healthcare system got deregulated too. People talking about, Americans should have the personal choice of getting totally fleeced by their health insurance companies. Americans should have the personal choice of having industries deregulated to the point that they are unloading costs onto everyday working people. And so, I appreciate the efforts put into the limericks and such here. But really, as someone who's trying to approach this matter in good faith, I genuinely try not to approach legislation of just being reflexively Republican. But as a person who does care about costs, I worry that these weakened standards are going to drive up people's water bills. I worry about the environmental impact of it. Drought is genuinely a problem. And I kind of don't, it really may be a water pressure issue, genuinely. And so I say this because I just kind of want to give credence to the concerns that are put around this. And I'm not sure that those underlying concerns have been addressed. And with that, I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. Further discussion.
And I, of course, want to give a hat tip to California Governor Gavin Newsom. He stopped by the New York Times Deal Book Summit. So his audience that he's speaking to in this clip are the billionaires. He's speaking to corporate oligarchs right now. And he says, enough with this corporate crony capitalism. By the way, in front of the corporate crony capitalists right now. Here, play this clip right here.
I'm serious. If you were Tim Cook, under the circumstances, and he's in your state, under the circumstances he is in, which is he manufactures a lot of stuff in China,
and he was
worried about the tariffs.
He was able to make a phone call that no small business in my state could have made. I mean, how about my farmers and ranchers in California? How about all these small, medium-sized businesses that can't pick up the phone and get an exemption on their tariffs? So yeah, it breaks my heart a little bit. That's a version of crony. That is, by definition, crony capitalism. It is the definition of it. But what is he? Back to the generous analysis. That's called being a fiduciary, doing what he needs to do on behalf of his shareholders. That's his job. So do I begrudge that? Yes. But do I begrudge him? Not as much. But what I do begrudge is the tone and tenor that this administration has set and the expectations they've set, that if you don't do the bidding, you don't write the check, you don't get the contract. Directing contracts, changing procurement, sole source on this, sole source that. This is a different level than we've ever seen in the past. Some would argue, okay, it's just more transparent. BS. It's at a different scale than we've seen in the past. And for those that are complicit and participatory in that, beyond their fiduciary responsibility, that's where I have a real problem.
Yeah, hat tip to California Governor Gavin Newsom for that right there. And I thought that was such a powerful moment indeed. I finally just want to show you this, to show you again these MAGA Republicans in action. I think this kind of ties it all together, just about how cowardly they are. And I'll give a hat tip here to Mika on Morning Joe for asking these questions, as well as the other host here. And they said, look, this speaking to MAGA Republican Senator Roger Marshall. It's like, okay, You're using drug trafficking as a pretext to basically let Donald Trump do whatever the hell he wants, right? You're saying this is why Trump should have unfettered powers because you're anti-drug trafficking. That's your position, right? Right. Okay. Well, then why Donald Trump just pardon the biggest narco-terrorist drug trafficker that there is, Juan Orlando Hernandez? Why did he do that? And then you have MAGA Republican Senator Roger Marshall say, you know what? I don't know the details. I just don't know. I don't know. Here, play this clip.
But more so, you just, rightly outlined the dangers posed by drugs. So what explanation do you have for President Trump offering a pardon to the former president of Honduras, who prosecutors said ran a massive drug cartel, including sending tons and tons of it to the United States?
Yeah, I don't know the details of that particular pardon. Happy to look into it, but I just can't really speak to it.
All right, Republican.
Okay. All right. So, no thought on the fact that he was pardoned?
Well, again, I think it's unfair to, without me researching the details of that pardon, to give you any type of an answer. I'm a doctor. If you ask me a question, I don't have a good answer or a factual answer, I'm going to say I don't know. I'm happy to go research it. I'm really locked in on healthcare right now, trying to bring down the cost of healthcare for Americans and make our lives more affordable.
Republican Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas, thank you very much, Doctor, for coming in this morning. We appreciate your insights.
That right there shows you, what was the expression? The banality of evil sometimes, right? That was a description given to Nazis. The banality of evil is the terminology, banality of evil. It's just so ingrained that they could go along with these atrocities. And then ultimately when they're confronted with the facts and the data, all of a sudden it's like, I don't know. I didn't hear him say it. I didn't see the post. I don't know. I'm just getting familiar with the issue. I don't know about it. Or they refuse to even engage with the topics, right? Like, we know that there is no fentanyl coming from Venezuela. They don't do fentanyl there. The fentanyl is coming from China and it's coming through Mexico. That's where the fentanyl is coming from. Okay. We also know that these fishing boats that are being killed in war crimes are being shot at in war crimes by the United States. They're small fishing boats. Look at a map of where Venezuela is versus the United States. Those fishing boats can't make it to the United States unless they refuel like 8 to 9 times. So most likely the fishing boats, if they're going anywhere, they may be going to another country in South America or Central America, but they don't have the gas to make it to the United States. So what the hell are we even doing here? And why are we not just addressing the facts? Because ultimately, Donald Trump uses drug trafficking as a pretext the way that Putin uses denazification to invade Ukraine. Notice that Donald Trump first tried to use drug trafficking as a pretext to conquer Canada. Remember all the 51st state talk, which was Trump threatening the sovereignty? What'd he say? Fentanyl, drug trafficking. And people are like, what? What are you talking about? Right? It sounds so crazy and outlandish, but that's exactly the way denazification sounds with Ukraine. Like, what do you mean? I mean, Zelensky is Jewish. Like, what do you mean? Denazification? What the hell what are we even talking about here? That's the situation, though. Trump uses those Putin-esque tactics. So you would think, is Donald Trump going to be strong to China, where the fentanyl is actually coming in from? No! That's where he's going to be the weakest. Why? Because at his heart, he doesn't have a heart, at his core emptiness, he is a weak loser. And so what he actually ordered as it relates to China is a pullback of any moves that could potentially get Xi Jinping upset. And it's so gross that that's what Donald Trump's doing. So there were potential sanctions against China related to espionage against the United States. And Donald Trump said, nope, we got to pull back any sanctions relating to espionage involving China. Because Xi Jinping said, look, Donald, here's the deal. You want us to send you rare earth elements. You want us to buy soybeans from farmers. You want to meet with Xi Jinping coming up? Because I know Trump wants that photo op. He's thirsty for that photo op with Xi, right? You want to do all that? Well, here's what you're going to do, Donald. You can't even let the president of Taiwan use American airspace. Donald Trump goes, yes, sir. I won't let him use the airspace. We didn't allow the president of Taiwan to land in the United States on his way to Central America, on his way to another trip. You got to take away any sanctions related to espionage. Donald Trump's like, yeah, okay, Xi Jinping, whatever you want me to do, we won't do that. Xi Jinping to Donald Trump, hey, you got to tell Japan and their new Prime Minister Takaishi not to in any way say that they'll support Taiwan if China invades Taiwan. And Donald Trump calls up Takaishi and says, you got to tone it down. You got to tone it down. The only reason why Japan has to assert itself that way at all is because of the United States' weakness in not protecting our traditional allies. Japan's like, we're supposed to be the ally. What are you doing here? But go back to the very beginning with what Marco Rubio said about his perspective of the world. This is awfully telling. And to me, this describes a lot of the new world order that we're seeing. But the United States is executing this quite poorly because we've alienated and destroyed all of our alliances, and Trump's completely incompetent in doing everything. But Rubio very early on said, we now live in a multipolar world. America should no longer be the leader. It's a pretty significant statement to be made when people are used to thinking of America as the leader in the world. Okay, well, how do you see the dynamic? And Rubio goes, America, China, Russia. What about Europe? What about Australia? What about Africa? What about Canada? What about economies that are doing well in Mexico or South America? How do you see this world developing? You know, Russia's economy is struggling right now. I'm not sure why you're exalting Russia when our allies have far more thriving economies than Russia, but that's how you see it. So to me, in Trump's authoritarian mind, his view is he, Putin, and Xi Jinping carve up the world. Carve up the world. And that's how Donald Trump sees everything. Trump did the way Putin did denazification. Trump tried it with Canada and Greenland. And Trump settled on Venezuela. They look weak. You know, I'm losing Latino voters anyway. Maybe I do an invasion there. Help with oil. Help the oil companies. Maybe we do that. That'll satiate the bloodlust that Donald Trump has. And let's do war crimes, because that's what these war criminal authoritarians do. But what about Europe? What about all these other countries? What about Canada? What about Australia? What about Africa? You're doing fake peace deals with Rwanda and Congo, but are you focusing on the fact that in many other nations within Africa, that's where data centers are being built. That's where a lot of infrastructure and technology, that's why China's going in there. While you're out there attacking South America, Colombia, and while you, Donald, are making relationships with Bukele of El Salvador, which is a very weak economy, I might add, and Argentina, a very weak economy there with your authoritarian puppet there, Javier Milei, guess what China's doing? China's out there making deals with Brazil. China's out there asserting itself in areas that used to be allies of the United States. They're moving into Africa. They're moving into South America, Central America, Mexico. They're expanding the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. What do you do? Like you're not executing any of this, even though your plan is dastardly and disgusting. You're doing a horrible job with it as well. But anyway, that's what's going on with the Trump regime. I know we covered a lot there. I want to make sure everybody hits subscribe. Help us get to 6 million subscribers. I'm going to do a whole other hot take on New York Attorney General Letitia James having the indictment getting rejected by the grand jury in Norfolk. We'll talk about that with the next steps there. I'll do a hot take on that and so much more. Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million. We're grateful for all of our sponsors. Thank you so much to all of them. We appreciate them. Subscribe. You may think you're subscribed, but you may not be subscribed. Subscribe on audio as well. You can leave a 5-star review on audio. That helps us a ton too. Spread the word. We appreciate you. MeidasPlus.com is our Substack. Thank you all so much. We'll see you next time on the MeidasTouch Podcast. Shout out to the Meidas Mighty.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.